Hello, I'm delighted to be able to welcome Arayah, who runs a holistic health and wellbeing business in New Zealand called Arayah's Compass. And her mission is to empower and assist individuals on their journey to self-awareness and healing. Welcome, Arayah.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, I've done 6 sessions with you now and had some real fabulous experiences, and you've really helped me to clear some really deep stuff that's been going on, not just for myself, but I've been carrying for lifetimes down my lineage. And so I've been very grateful to you, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be able to introduce you to the listeners. We're going to hear today a little bit about your own awakening journey. So if you'd like to maybe start, can you begin by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, sure. My name is Arayah, and my given name is Janine. I was born in the Netherlands in 1973, and when I was 24 years old, I moved to New Zealand with my at the time 3-year-old and my husband. And New Zealand was really where I woke up to my spiritual path. So it's been quite a journey from here.
How long ago was that?
In 2001.
2001. Okay, so that's 18 years. So it's been quite a bit of the time on the path. Was it, well, how did it happen? Was it sudden, or was it, or did it just gradually go? Do you want to sort of tell us how you first realized that you were awakening?
I think I was already waking up a little bit around the birth of our first child. I started seeing colors again and hearing a spirit talk to me, and it was quite subtle, so I wasn't quite sure what was happening. It was just at some point, I think it was just before, maybe around 2000, that I had a real quick awakening. It was actually quite an interesting story. One morning I was watching the Oprah Winfrey show, having a coffee and just relaxing. And she looked into the camera and she said, she was talking to somebody, and she, how she's always quite motivational. And all of a sudden she looked right in the camera and she said, "Go your destiny." And that was, for me, it was just such a strange moment. It was like something switched on inside of me, and I just looked around and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not supposed to be here much longer. And I just knew in that instant that I wasn't going to be in the Netherlands much longer. And so from there, it was only just a few more months before the ball started rolling, and we immigrated to New Zealand. And that was the time that, for me, the doors just went wide open, and I started seeing and hearing spirit again. And initially just really feeling bewildered and quite worried that something was wrong with me. So I started reading a lot of books and going to different courses and meeting up with people, and slowly but surely I realized that yes, this was all quite real. I was actually hearing spirit talk to me, and I was getting proper feedback from the spiritual world. And that was the beginning of my spiritual path, really. But to be quite clear, I was already quite switched on when I was younger. I did see things and hear things, and I was always quite aware of adults saying one thing but feeling something else, or perhaps not quite speaking the truth. I always observed. I was quite an observant child, really. But as a teenager, that just all closed off, and I tried to fit in with society as much as possible.
I see, because I'd heard you say I started seeing colours again, and used the word again a few times, and I realised that there must have been some evidence of it when you were a child. But so often happens that when you're in a teenage mode, that it becomes you close it all down. My daughter did that very much, closed it all down, going through her teenage, because she didn't want to be different from everybody else. They were trying to be the same. It's part of the journey. So how has your journey been like since then? What's happened?
It's been quite a roller coaster. I think the high moments were fantastic, and just really feeling the amazing energies coming in and really connecting parts of myself, reconnecting, I should say. So that's been great, but it's also been hard going at times. I've had relationship problems as a reflection of myself and my learning, just to really get to know my own shadow and integrate those aspects of myself. And also, I became quite ill in 2007 and had cancer, and that that was quite a scary journey. But just looking back on that, it was probably the most empowering thing as well, because I really learned about healing and what it's all about.
Mm. Well, so often we find that it's actually our darkest times that's where we learn and grow the most, and that being on an awakening path doesn't mean to say that life doesn't still happen to you, but what you do is you become more consciously aware of it happening to you, and what you're supposed to be learning from it, and so it empowers you in a way rather than victimizes you. Do you not agree?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And it always, at the time, I really started to get a new appreciation for life, and just how amazing people are. And when you really need help, how readily available it is, that the universe is really always there to back you up and support you and guide you through the hard times. So I have found that I've always been guided and protected and carried. So even though it's been hard and at times quite scary, like you said, your wounds become your power, your strength.
Yeah. So you've mentioned a few of the things that you have in terms of giftings and things about seeing colours and whatever, but do you maybe want to expand a little bit that on what you actually can do, as it were?
Yes, I firmly believe that to some extent we are all very psychic, and that we all have these gifts. I do think that maybe some things are more accentuated for certain people, and then we all have different areas of expertise. And so for me, mainly my clairvoyance and my clairsentience, those are really strong areas of where I can really feel and sense and see spirit. And I think that's what I already had as a child, that I could really feel things. Sometimes when I'm really open, I can literally kind of hear what people are thinking. So it's quite interesting at times. But how that translates at the moment of where I'm at is that I'm doing a lot of work as a soul, retrieving soul aspects for people and for myself. So tidying up the old stories, the old timelines, in preparation for the new earth, because everything's dismantling and unifying. There's a lot of soul work that I'm doing in terms of just grabbing little bits where people are stuck in certain stories or repetitive thoughts and beliefs, and just being able to actually see how that ties in with other lifetimes and other stories for a soul, and then bringing that back to soul, so unifying it. So that's kind of the biggest chunk of my soul work at the moment, offering that in terms of healing.
Yeah, and that's very much been the kinds of sessions that I've had with you when we've done that, and it's amazing that you do them obviously in New Zealand where you are, but you do them remotely with people around the world, because I mean I'm on the other side of, I'm on the other side of the world over in Scotland, and you're in New Zealand, and so there's a 12 or at times 13-hour time difference between us, but we just here it's very early morning and there it's evening, but we still manage to be able to do that. And do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do and how you do it? Because I could describe it, but I think it would be better coming from you.
Well, a session like you just talked about, usually we just tune in. So what I do is I tune into the energetic signature of a person. So by us having a little bit of communication, that already helps, but it's not necessary per se. If you have a name of a person or a little bit of information, you soon get a feeling for that person, and you tune in. And yeah, it's quite a process. But I have my spirit team. These are ascended masters and higher beings of the higher light octaves that I call in and work with. And mostly these are higher aspects of myself as a soul. So my higher self and all aspects of self that I have integrated so far. And then I tune in. It sort of takes maybe 3 to 5 minutes, and we get a strong connection. And then what happens is I establish my Merkaba field, so I can travel through time space. And most of the time I actually project my spirit body towards the person that I'm healing, although that's not strictly necessary. You can also just do it with your mental power, basically, by tuning in that way, which is called remote viewing. And then we just establish a connection, and I do actually the same thing as I would do here in a session physically here in my cabin. I just go through my routine, which is the routine I'm not strictly adhering to, but it's mostly just so I have a structure. And then my guidance and my higher guidance really kicks in and talks me through in terms of where I have to go in the body field of the client and what's happening for them. And then I start seeing pictures. I see the soul stories that are coming up for healing. So whatever's being brought up to the light comes through. So it's really a dance between my soul and the soul of the client in terms of what's ready to be brought home back to source. And and so the learning is the main thing. So we need to distill the learning from those stories in terms of what was it that the soul was needing or wanting to learn, and then bring it through the heart of the client, bring it through love and aligning it back to the heart of creation, which is God or source or great spirit or whatever you want to call a great light that we all come from. And most of that happens in kind of like a mirroring process. So I feel it and hear it in my own being as if I'm the one experiencing it. So that that's my feedback, that's my barometer in terms of what's happening. And then I can also see when the session's finished. And
yeah, because I mean, at first I thought that was an odd thing, because you don't actually speak to the client or have contact with them sort of like through the media or whatever, because because when I was doing it, I was lying on my bed doing my meditation, and you were over in New Zealand doing it, and we weren't connected in any way except through the etheric field. But what was really amazing was when we got back on afterwards and started to compare stories, and you told me first all the things that you'd done, and I'm going, but that's what I saw. And we even saw the same images about where you were, where the higher selves were dancing, and various other things that I'd seen in you. So we saw the same things, and in the other sessions that we've done, I feel, I can say, oh, I knew you were in my head today, or I could feel it all down my left side, or whatever it was. So I can actually feel it in my body as when you're actually doing it. So it feels very. It feels very real, and that we're very, very connected, even although I don't know how many thousand miles it is between Scotland and New Zealand, but we're very connected for the air. So that's but for people who are just in the early stages of their awakening and wondering and sitting there saying, well, my goodness, I didn't have any powers like that, and I didn't have these when I was younger, or maybe they had sort of not realised that they had these kind of gifts. How quickly did they develop, or did you start off with it turned on sort of fully when you suddenly awakened, it all turned on fully, or was it a slow process in building that up?
I think, like I said, it started to open slowly when I gave birth to our first child. And that's when I started seeing colors again, and kind of looking at my hands and just sort of experiencing energy come through me, having a few visits from grandparents in spirit.
All right.
And then and being a little bit freaked out about it, thinking, oh, what's happening? Did I just dream that, or was that real? But when I came to New Zealand, that was really quite full-on intense awakening for me. And I think probably because I had to leave my family and friends in Holland behind, and so there was quite a lot of sadness. And in that sadness, my heart had broken wide open, because the whole concept of who I thought I was in the Netherlands, the Janine, the whole version of myself, was turned upside down. I was literally on the other side of the world, and everything I knew that was my reality was all of a sudden gone. So that was probably why it felt pretty intense. But my mother-in-law quickly took me to a spiritual church, what she referred to as spooky church, because she thought I know what I can do, how I can help her. And I remember sitting there thinking, oh, I don't know about this. What is all this? And then the lady picked me out of the audience, and she actually confirmed some things that happened to me that morning, that I actually knew. I was being watched by my grandparents in spirit, and the lady confirmed it. So I thought, no, this is something that's real. This is really happening. So from there on, it was, it was gradual, but still didn't stop anymore. It was still, I was on track, and it just one thing after another, just as it came up, really.
Your spirit does seem to leave a bread. I call it a breadcrumb trail. You know that you go from one thing to the other, and it's just sometimes little things that confirm it to you. You're just wondering, is this real? And then something happens that goes yes, and you think, there you go. You know, so it's very much a yes universe. If you ask for it, you get the information that you're.
Oh, absolutely, using. Yes, definitely. That was one of the first things I learned, actually. If you can ask the question, you can get the answer, and it's all about asking the right questions, and also making sure you want to hear the answer, because you have to kind of also be conscious what you ask for, really.
Yeah, because most of the people who are awakening at this particular point have often not chosen an easy path. They've sometimes had some quite difficult things, and you mentioned yourself you've had cancer and difficulties with some relationships and things. And I've had all sorts of this well documented on my website and things, all the things that I've been through in my life too. So it doesn't need to say that you certainly sometimes you go through that to help you to reach down to the very darkest parts of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's all about confronting your own shadow, and with shadow I don't mean your demons or heavy stuff like that per se, but it's going where you haven't actually wanting to see yourself or meet yourself before. So there's always going to be areas of our personality self that haven't been brought back into oneness. They haven't been unified. So there's core beliefs that we have, fear-based beliefs about ourselves and our world, that at some point when your frequency rises, they are no longer resonating with where you're at. And then that has to come up. So the light shines on it, and then those parts that need to come into healing, they will come up. And that's not always easy hasn't been always easy to admit or to wanting to go there. But I think I was quite lucky that my clairvoyance was very well defined or well developed. So in meditation, I especially around the time that I was going through my cancer journey, in meditation I could really see where my soul was going with bringing these darker or these unloved aspects of myself. So yeah, I think it was a really big help. And also I had, as you do, you attract people around you, and you go to courses or you're reading books, and everything will be relevant most of the time as to where you are at and what you're learning. So I always had a lot of help, lots of amazing people to turn to. And I also think, and maybe that was a personal experience, but I felt that I wasn't so much learning new things, but I was remembering what I had already learned in other lifetimes. Mm-hmm. So I haven't actually had to go seek out many what you could call gurus or teachers or things like that. Sometimes I just needed to start a book or pick something up or energetically, and it just kind of clicked. So I think many of us who are now awakening have had many, many lifetimes of learning. And that's why it can actually go quite fast, especially in this day and age. I see young people around me waking up really quickly and being on an accelerated path. So,
yes, I've come across people who are like that. Like 1 year they're small and feeling that they're not confident enough, and then all of a sudden a year later, you know, they've blossomed and are out there shining their light to the world. Yeah. So we've heard about this sort of session. How did your business grow, and what kind of things and services and things do you offer to the world now?
Yeah, I started by doing my healing work, so just really bringing through energy healing through my hands, and that just started becoming more and more strong in terms of bringing higher energies through. So that's still very much my main passion, the healing work, the soul healing work. And I'm not ever going to say that I am healing people. It's always a co-creation. So it's a dance between one soul and another. And me just bringing through the light from source as much as possible to help and co-create. So the healing part, the soul healing, is very much still my main passion. But I also do house clearings, land clearings, activations, lots of portal work. As I said, I'm working a lot in the collective at the moment with unifying the storylines and the timelines of the collective. And that's a personal as well as a collective aspect of healing myself and the world around me. I do guided meditations, readings or counseling sessions. The work that we did together, like the online sessions. I also have regular meditation evenings and do group sessions, as in bringing through star teachings and shamanic teachings. And that also sometimes can be done online. At the moment, I'm doing it with a couple in the Netherlands, so you can also definitely do that online. What else? I love doing art, so bringing through vibrational art is just something that I really enjoy, and it makes me feel really happy and peaceful. And I make my own health and beauty products as well as vibrational medicine. So yeah, quite a lot. There's lots of variety in it, but it all comes down to doing light work, really. It's just what my soul loves doing. So wherever my joy takes me.
Yeah, and joy is a really important part of it. You know, doing what you don't do it to go to make money. You do it because that's part of where you're drawn to do, to shine your light into the world. You know, and your light, I think, is shining very brightly.
Thank you.
So we're coming towards the end of this interview, and probably most, if not all, of the people who are going to be watching this are at some stage on their path, but maybe very early on in their awakening, or a wee bit further down. But for somebody who's walked that path before, do you have any kind of advice that you would suggest for them, to give them some kind of inspiration or advice or whatever for their path forward?
Yeah, I think one of the main things is to be really discerning when you first start, especially because there's a lot of people awakening at this time, and so there will be a lot on offer. And I always say to people, just make sure that you filter everything through your own body feedback to see, where am I with this? Is this for me? Does this feel, how does this feel for me? Is this something that I have to take on board, or is it someone else's truth? And it's all equally okay. But because we're all kind of learning different things, we have to be very discerning. So that would be the first thing I would say. Another thing is perhaps to be really self-loving, really kind to yourself, and taking time to integrate and be patient. It's a step-by-step process, and it's not about getting there, it's about the journey. And so the mistakes that you make along the way, they're not really mistakes, but where you think you could have done something different, or they're just as valid. They're actually the nuggets of gold. And also they point you perhaps in another direction, or they are bits of learning, so they're just as valid as all the times where you feel you've done great, or where it's gone really well. So maybe that. What else? I think whenever I'm stuck, whenever I feel that I don't quite know where to go with something, I always ask, what would love do? So asking that question always points me back to my heart. And then I get out of my head and I come back into my heart, and then I can feel usually in my heart where my path goes, or what my direction is. So yeah.
Oh, that's lovely.
I have a lot of advice, but I think just to keep it at these three for now. Otherwise,
yeah, you have an absolute treasure trove and wealth, and there's all sorts of stuff in there about star lines and timelines and all that kind of stuff that I would really have. We could have spent another hour chatting about that. Maybe we'll do another talk sometime and look at that. But anyway, I want to. So I want you to thank you so much for your insight and sharing your fascinating story. You really are doing really great work in the world, and I've been very blessed and privileged that you've crossed my path and we've walked away together for the last wee while, and I hope that we continue to do that in the future. And if anybody wants to get in touch or follow up after this interview, I'm going to put I'll put your website address and all that sort of thing at the end, or whatever. But so hopefully some people will feel drawn to follow up and receive the benefit of your wisdom, advice, and help and support and healing as well. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Shuna. I'm equally grateful to have met you. It's been wonderful, and just really enjoyed our interview. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.